A lot of musicians are using iPads, tablets, and phones for different reasons. We use them for backing tracks, for click track, MIDI in and out, effects, sample libraries for keyboards, video, and other reasons. But there's only one problem. How do we get more inputs and outputs when we're limited to just a single port? In this video, I'm going to go over a bunch of different options that you have for connecting multiple devices to a tablet such as an iPad. In this video, I'm going to go over audio, MIDI in and out, including wireless or wired. I'm also going to show you how to do multi-track outputs. That's outputting more than just one stereo track out of your iPad. I'm also going to show you how to charge your tablet while doing all of this. And at the end, I'm also going to discuss video as well. Anything I talk about in this video will be linked down below in the description. A lot of these products I have dedicated reviews on my channel. So I'll also link to those videos down below in the description. My goal with this video is to show you a bunch of different possibilities. And then when you find one that goes, that's exactly what I'm looking for, I'll be sure to link to those videos that go into more depth on these products about setting it up to make sure that it's right for you and your needs. So yeah, I'm going to recommend quite a few other videos of mine during this video. All the details will be found in the description down below. I'm going to be discussing quite a bit with backing tracks and MIDI. This is not a video about setting up your backing tracks or understanding MIDI. I have this video going over how to set up backing tracks, and I have this video about understanding MIDI if that's what you're looking for. That's enough the intro. Consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed, and let's go ahead and check out these devices to get more inputs and outputs from our tablets. For this example, I'm going to go over all USB-C examples. If you happen to have like an older iPad that has Lightning, you might just have to check. There's still quite a few options out there for Lightning connectors. And also for me, I'm going to demo this on the iPad. If you have another tablet from like an Android or something like that, again, you might just have to do a little bit more research, but USB-C and iPad are the main thing I'm going to go over in this video. Before I get to even the first item, one thing I want to point out, especially with some of the adapters that I'm going to go over in this video, you need to make sure that you test it out to make sure that it works with your tablet. Especially with adapters, if you go online and just read some reviews from some of these adapters, you'll find that most people say that it works for them, but other people will say it doesn't work at all. That's been my experience as well. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it just depends on the operating system or which generation of the iPad that I'm using. Make sure that you always test it out. I wanted to get that disclaimer in right at the beginning. Now let's check out some of these products. So this first one I think most of you know about, but just in case if you don't, this is a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter. I can plug in, and then I can plug in a 3.5 millimeter cable into my iPad. I'm going to plug into a direct box so you guys can hear what's happening. So this side has the click track. And then when I plug in this side, this has the backing tracks. This is a very easy way to set up backing tracks. If you aren't familiar with this method, don't forget to watch my video on setting up backing tracks. So that's pretty simple. If you use these, don't forget to have multiple of these adapters. I've lost so many of these over the years. So this is nice, but now you don't have a way to charge your iPad. I did find this cable, and this specifically is labeled at the 3.5 millimeter for headphones or audio, and then USB-C for powering the device. So now I'm able to get audio out and also charge my iPad. Something I did notice when doing this is that the audio is cut basically in half. You can hear both the click and the tracks are quieter. While I was testing this one out, it did cut out a couple of times. Of course, now that I'm filming, I can't get it to cut out, but that did happen. So this one isn't my favorite, and instead I would go with something like this. This one has a 3.5 millimeter for audio as well as USB-C for charging. It also has a USB-A port, which will come into play later. This one still turns down the volume, but not quite as much. Just realize that can be what happens if you need to charge while you're using this. Just something to be aware of. And realize that these adapters don't work with every single tablet, so it's part of the risk that you take using something like this. So always test it. So those adapters can work. I mean, especially one like this, you're just basically converting USB-C to audio, so there's not a whole lot extra that's going on. But if you use any of these adapters, just remember they are easy to break, easy to lose. Sometimes it'll like turn down the audio output if you're charging. Sometimes when you try to charge it and use a 3.5 millimeter, it can generate a buzz or some noise. Just make sure you test them out to make sure it works for you. Amazon's got a good return policy if it doesn't work. So the adapters aren't really my favorite. They're still definitely possible to use, but if you want a little bit more reliability, we should go with something like an audio interface. That's where you can start to get more inputs as well as multiple outputs. So this is the way you can output different backing track stems or different backing track sounds, for example, out their own dedicated outputs. And here's how you do that with an audio interface. So there are a ton of different audio interfaces that you can use to get multi-track outputs. I like this one by Mo2. It's got 4 inputs and 4 outputs. You just always want to check how many outputs you need. This one has 4 outputs, as you can see right here, and that works for me. If you need more, you're going to need something that has more outputs. It can be bus powered from the iPad. It's not too expensive. I'll link to this down below, but there's a ton of different ones that do this. But with this one specifically, I'm looking at the 4 outputs. That's mostly what I need it for. You will need some sort of software that is capable of routing audio in this way. The 3 that I know of are StageTracks 3 or StageTracks 4, Multitracker, and Prime by Loop Community. The one that I personally use is StageTracks 4. I love this app. And you can see when I connect to the Mo2 M4, I can route things out different outputs. This isn't a tutorial on StageTracks, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to route the drums, and the tracks are going to go out output 1, the bass is going to go out output 2, click out output 3, and the cues are going to go out output 4. Watch my video on StageTracks 3 if you want to see how to set something like this up. It is pretty simple. But now you can see out of the output of the Mo2 interface, if I plug into output 4, you're going to hear the cue track. Don't you forget about me. All in, ready, go. When I plug into output 3, you're going to hear the click track. When I plug into output 1, you're going to hear the drums and the tracks. And then when I plug into output 2, you can hear the bass. All of these are going out their own dedicated outputs. You can route them separately if you want. And on the Mo2, you have your master volume right here. But you can route 4 separate outputs in whichever way you want, to an in-ear monitor rack, to front of house, however you want to route the different stems, you can do that with this. That's what's really nice about multi-tracking. Now you might be asking, can I charge the iPad while I use something like this? I did test it. I can plug in USB-A, because remember this one has USB-A output as well, which is what's really nice about this one specifically. I can connect that to the Mo2 interface. You can see it powers it up, and then when I plug in to plug in power, it does charge the iPad as well. Again, adapters can be a little bit iffy. Just make sure you always have a spare if you're going to do something like this. But it does work. Just a quick shout out, this is the one that I really like, and I have a separate dedicated review on this. This is the Track Rig. This just gives you 8 XLR line level outputs. It connects very easily to StageTracks. You can route the audio out 8 of these outputs, so 8 mono or 4 stereo. Just nice and easy to use. I have a dedicated video on that if you are interested. But the Track Rig is really nice, and I definitely like this one. It is also possible to do this, to route multi-track backing tracks out to a mixer specifically. You can skip the audio interface and go to like an in-ear monitor mixer if you have one that allows that. It depends on the mixer, of course, but usually if they have a USB-B port, it usually will work. That's how I personally run our tracks. I will plug in directly to our mixer. If you want to know the process of doing that, I do go over that in my StageTracks 3 Part 2 video. Again, all the links will be down below in the description if you want to find out how to do that. Next up, I'm briefly going to talk about getting audio into the iPad, and then we're going to talk about MIDI and some more advanced solutions. For getting audio in, the Mo2 M4 also is capable of 4 different inputs. You have these front 2 in the front for XLR or 1/4 inch. So I'm going to plug in a microphone, load up GarageBand, and you can see that I'm getting audio in, and I'm also routing the audio out so that you can hear it. Microphone check. Hello, hello. Mic check. 1, 2. Test, test. 1, 2. Mic check. Pretty simple for audio input if you plan to do that. If you're wondering where the other 2 inputs are, they are 2 line level inputs, which are here on the back. And something I do want you to just remember is that the Mo2 also has a MIDI in and a MIDI out, because we're about to get to MIDI. Another device that I have used for inputs and outputs is the iRig Duo. They have a bunch of different iRigs, but this has 2 combo inputs. You also have a left and right output. You also have a direct monitor output for headphones, and you also have MIDI in and out as well. The only thing that's kind of annoying about this model is that it needs this type of a cable in order to plug in to your iPad. So that's why I also need that adapter in order to plug in via USB. I personally like the Mo2 a little bit more, but the iRig has worked. I've actually gigged with the iRig specifically. I even have an old video from 8 years ago when I first started my YouTube channel going over a setup that I did using the iRig. What if you want to get MIDI in for audio? For example, this Rolly piano, I could just go USB-C to USB-C, and I can go directly in to the iPad, but then you can't hear it, so I'm not even going to demo that. That's why we have the adapter again. So I'm going to go USB-C out of the Rolly Piano into USB-A, load up something like Sample Tank. You can see it's responding. And then to get audio out, I'm just going to use something like this. This is a 3.5 millimeter to 1/4 inch cable. 3.5 millimeter plugs into the adapter. And then 1/4 inch is going to plug into my direct box. And you can hear I can play the keys. MIDI in and audio out using that adapter, and everything works. A common question I get when I do these kinds of videos, do I need a direct box? I have a specific video going over that if you're asking that question. So next up is MIDI. MIDI is great for controlling external gear, making your patch changes on your pedals sync up, controlling lighting, controlling video, all sorts of stuff. MIDI is incredibly powerful. And you know what's a really easy way to get MIDI in or MIDI out is over wireless MIDI or also Bluetooth MIDI. There's a ton of great devices out there that use Bluetooth MIDI. Bluetooth MIDI has extremely low latency, and this is actually the way that I do my MIDI from Stage Tracks 4. I use MIDI in to control stage tracks, and then I control external gear using MIDI out. Both of them are done with Bluetooth. So I'm going to show you a couple of those options. However, I'm also going to show you some wired solutions. Really quick, if you are finding this video helpful, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. It only takes a second, and it truly does help support the channel. So for MIDI in to control stage tracks, I use this M-Wave chocolate controller. It's like a $40 battery-powered programmable pedal. It's super easy to use, and you can see in stage tracks under the Bluetooth MIDI devices, it is connected. You can see I can push play, but I can also use this to scroll lyrics, open different windows, select different songs in the set list. This thing works really well. I have a separate video going over this if you want to see a step-by-step on how to program it, but very simple. It connects to your phone or your tablet via Bluetooth, and I can control stage tracks that way. Super simple. If you need more advanced MIDI, I really like the Morningstar MC8 Pro and the Luminite Graviton M2. Believe it or not, I actually have videos on both of these as well if you're interested. They both can connect via Bluetooth. Just keep in mind, if you are going to connect via Bluetooth, you are going to have to provide power to it, but they both can be powered with USB-C, which is nice. I'm going to go under Stage Tracks and connect to the MC8 Pro via Bluetooth, and then I can push play, and it's controlling stage tracks. Hungry like the wolf. All in, ready, go. So yeah, if you need more advanced MIDI or just like a nicer MIDI pedal with displays of what each of the buttons do, those are the two that I recommend. If you want a very simple one that's battery powered, the M-Wave is good. Keep in mind, keep it close to the device that it's connected to. If you put it too far away, it will disconnect in my experience. But I usually have it like 5 feet maybe from my device, and it stays pretty well connected. It's when I try to put it further away that it disconnects. Something I did want to show you, the Rolly Piano is also capable of connecting via Bluetooth, but when I go to my settings and to my normal Bluetooth settings, it doesn't show up in this menu. This is a common problem that can happen. There is a free app called MIDI Meter, spelled like this. Make sure you spell it correctly. This is a great app. I use this constantly. You can go under devices and you can see my Lumi keys. That device is here, and now I can connect to it via this app. And now I can play wirelessly and send MIDI messages to something like Sample Tank. But yeah, check out MIDI Meter. It's a free download. I use it a lot. And I know I told you I would be recommending a ton of different videos that I have. But I also have a video of how you can use MIDI Meter to send MIDI to and from one iPad to another or one iPad to an iPhone. Definitely very helpful and also worth knowing if you need to do something like that. All right, next up, we have MIDI Out. So this is great to control external gear. For this demo, I'm just going to demo it with the HX Stomp because it's just so easy to film, but this will work with any device that accepts MIDI. So first of all, if you're just controlling one device, you can do this very easily via Bluetooth with these two devices right here. This is the WIDI Master or the WIDI Jack by CME Pro. Believe it or not, I have videos on both of these products. If you just need a 5-pin one, the WIDI Master will work. The WIDI Jack will also work with 5-pin MIDI, but if you have other inputs, it will work with those as well. So I'm just going to connect this to the MIDI in and the MIDI out of the HX Stomp. Keep in mind, this is a bi-directional Bluetooth MIDI device, so this can be used for sending MIDI in as well as sending MIDI out. It can work for both. For this demo, I'm just going to send MIDI from my iPad to the HX Stomp. Go under my settings, go to Bluetooth devices, make sure it's connected to the WIDI Jack, which it is. And then you can see when I push play, friends in low places, guitar in, ready. Nothing happens because I forgot in stage tracks, this is important. you want to go to MIDI settings and then say MIDI file to output port. And you have to say where you're going to route the MIDI file to. So in this case, it's to Bluetooth. So I'm going to save that. And now when I push play, you can see that all the patch changes will happen on my HX Stomp, and I can control my HX Stomp with MIDI. Guitar in, ready, go. Sending it out wirelessly via Bluetooth to control my gear. And that way I can use the USB port for sending audio. So this works great if you just need to send to one device. However, if you need to connect to multiple devices over Bluetooth, I like these products. This is the H4 MIDI and the WIDI through 6 BT. Both of these are by CME Pro. They both can receive MIDI over Bluetooth, and then you can connect them so that they output to multiple MIDI devices. I really like the WIDI through 6 a lot because you can connect with Bluetooth, or physically you can connect to the 5-pin input, and then you have 5 outputs to go to 5 different MIDI devices. So if you need to control multiple devices, this is one to look into. And if you need more details on that, you can check out my video on the WIDI through 6. But let's say you don't want to use Bluetooth. You want to have a wired connection. Remember, the Luminite can work via Bluetooth. It can go MIDI in or out via Bluetooth, but it can also do MIDI in or out with a wired connection as well. So for this, we're going to need this adapter, which has the USB-A port. Let's go ahead and plug that into the iPad. Audio is going to come out the 3.5 millimeter port. I'm also going to connect power in order to power the iPad, so I can charge the iPad while this is happening. And then I'm going to come out USB-C from the Luminite Graviton M2 into the USB-A port on my iPad. And you can see that my MIDI controller powers up. Something I want you to notice is this is actually really dim, and you might be able to notice that it's kind of flickering. It's because receiving enough power to turn it on, but not enough power for it to function properly. So I've assigned this first button to control play on stage tracks, but watch what happens when I push it. It pushes this second button for some reason. I have to use the touch screen in order to push play. Don't know why. All in, ready, go. That's not how this pedal is supposed to work, so it's just not getting enough power. That's part of the issue with this, and this is something that you might run into. So the workaround is that you need to power it via the 9-volt power supply up here. Here's a little workaround. I've actually found these devices. This is just a little adapter that you can use to connect a 9-volt battery. And watch what happens when I plug this in. It lights up in the way it's supposed to because now it's getting enough power. And now when I push this button, it will play like it's supposed to. Don't know why. It all depends on which MIDI controller you are using, but some of them are going to need a little bit more power. So you can either use a standard 9-volt power supply or these little adapters that I've been using that do seem to work pretty well. Just like any adapter, these 9-volt adapters can break pretty easily, so just make sure you have multiple ones if you plan to do something like this. But that's a way to get wired MIDI in or MIDI out, at least over USB, but what about 5-pin? Since the adapter just has USB, how do I connect that to something like the HX Stomp via 5-pin? Well, CME Pro also makes 2 different cables. This is the U2, which is USB-A to 5-pin MIDI in and out. And they also make this. This is the C2 Pro, which is USB-C to MIDI 5-pin in and out. So since my adapter takes USB-A, I'm going to use the U2 MIDI Pro. USB-A plugs into the adapter, and then I'm going to plug into MIDI in of the HX Stomp. Remember, this is MIDI in and out, but I personally don't need the MIDI out for my HX Stomp. But again, this will go in either direction. Remember that I need to assign where I'm routing the MIDI to in stage tracks. I've changed this. It's no longer Bluetooth. I'm setting this to the U2 MIDI Pro. And then as soon as I push play, you can see it's changing all of my patches for me. This is an option, but I will remind you that that Mo2 M4 also has 5-pin MIDI out as well. It has MIDI in and out, actually. I personally would rather use that to do something like this, because then I would have MIDI as well as the ability to do multi-track outputs and MIDI in one device. But it's up to you. That's just the one I would choose personally. I'm just giving you as many options as I can. Since we're talking about adapters, here's a couple more that I found. I did find these 2 right here. I will link to these down below as well. You can see if these fit your configuration that you're looking for. However, I personally really like this one right here. This one has a dock to put your iPad, which is really helpful. You have 3.5 millimeter audio out here on the side. You also have 3 USB-A ports, USB-C for charging the iPad, and then you also have microSD, SD, HDMI, and Ethernet out. I'm not really going to use some of those, but I like this one the most out of all the other ones. So I can connect this to my iPad. It's got this adjustable stand, which is great. I'm going to plug in back here for power, and you can see that it is charging my iPad. I can plug in audio to that 3.5 millimeter port if I prefer to go that route. Let's start now. All in, ready, go. But I can use one of those USB-A ports in the back to connect to my HX Stomp. I could also use another one of them to connect to the Motu M4. You can see it's powering that. If you do something more advanced like this, you just have to make sure everything is routed correctly. So I'm routing MIDI from stage tracks to the U2 cable, and then I'm routing audio out to the Motu M4. I can hear different stems out of each of the different outputs from the Motu audio interface. And I'm sending MIDI to the HX Stomp. But remember, again, you have MIDI out from the Motu as well. So I can get rid of the U2 cable, and I could actually just use a MIDI cable. This is another one that CME Pro makes. I swear this video isn't sponsored by CME Pro. I just love what they do. But these low profile cables are really nice. I'll also link to these down below. I'm going to go into the MIDI out of the Motu, go to the MIDI in on the HX Stomp, route the MIDI out to the Motu M4. And you can see that that is now changing patches on my HX Stomp as well as doing multi-track outputs of audio. That's why I really like this Motu device, or any interface that has MIDI in and out, as well as at least 4 outputs for me. Remember, if you need to connect to multiple MIDI devices as well, you can use the WIDI through 6. So I could come out of the Motu, go into the WIDI through 6, and then route out one of the through ports to the HX Stomp, and then I still have 4 other outputs to connect to other pieces of gear that accept MIDI. Do keep in mind that the WIDI through does require power via USB-C in order for it to work. And you know what? Since we're here and I'm just demoing all sorts of things that you can use, don't forget I can also use my M-Wave controller in order to control stage tracks wirelessly. So with this setup, I can control multiple things with MIDI, multi-track outputs, Bluetooth MIDI input. You can apply multiple things that we went over in this video and use them together. And just to wrap it up, let's take this even more extreme. Remember that dock also has an HDMI output, so I can output video as well. Obviously, you do this on a bigger screen. This is just one that I'm going to use for filming. Stage Tracks is really nice because it actually displays your lyrics on a separate screen. So this is really useful if you need like a teleprompter or something like that. Stage Tracks 4 is capable of doing that. But there is also the app Stage Q, which is made by the same developer of Stage Tracks 3 and 4. I have not created a video on this. Let me know in the comments if you would like a video on this. It pairs really well with Stage Tracks. You can send MIDI messages to it on the same iPad, or you can send it to a separate iPad if you want a separate iPad to control your video output. You will have to make sure that all of your routing is configured properly. Again, let me know in the comments if you want a video on Stage Q. I'm running Stage Q and Stage Tracks 4 on the same iPad, just side by side. I have video playing. These are snippets from music videos from my original music Spiral Cell, if you want to check it out. You know I had to ask at some point to check out my original music. Sending video, sending MIDI, and sending multi-track outputs, and sending Bluetooth in to control stage tracks. Quite a bit of options that you have on using a tablet live, even with just a single USB-C port. And hopefully this has helped you out with your setup. So I hope this video helped you guys out, and I hope it gave you some ideas on how you can set up your rig. Lots of different options that you can use for getting multiple inputs and outputs to something like an iPad. Just something to keep in mind, if you're trying to do too much stuff all at once, you might want to look into getting a laptop, not to overload your iPad. But again, it just depends on what you're trying to do. How I personally do this, all of the stuff that I currently control with my iPad is I'm running Stage Tracks 4. This is with some of the cover bands that I play with. I have a different setup with Spiral Cell. Spiral Cell's insanely complicated. That'll be a whole nother video. But with my cover bands, I use Stage Tracks 4. I use that M-Wave controller in order to send commands to control stage tracks. So stuff like play, scroll lyrics, choose the next song, turn on and off autoplay and stuff like that. I route the audio directly into our mixer. We have separate stems for tracks, bass, click, and then cues. So those go directly into our mixer. However, I have the track rig as a backup if I need it. I send MIDI messages out from Stage Tracks to control my lighting. The way I do that is I run MIDI out over Bluetooth direct to the Luminite M2, And then out of that, it goes USB out to USB in on the Maestro DMX, which is what I use to control our lighting. I would eventually like to trigger patch changes from my Helix Stadium. That's on my to-do list, and I would just use like the 5-pin MIDI out of that Luminite controller. Really nice that I can send MIDI messages to that over Bluetooth, and then I can send it out to my lights and to my pedals and stuff like that. So it's very nice that it's expandable, and I can add more things to this if I need to. With my current setup, there isn't a way to charge the iPad, but I just make sure that it's charged before every gig, and so far it's been working well, even when I play 4-hour shows. Leave a comment down below if there's anything that I missed. Let me know what you are using to get more inputs and outputs from your tablets. If you guys are still here, I'm assuming that means you found the video helpful. Do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. It only takes a second. It truly does help support the channel. Also consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this in the future. 2 other videos of mine to check out. So controlling gear with MIDI. There's 2 different external devices that I use to control lighting as well as video. One of them is the Maestro DMX, which is what I use for my cover bands. Very cool device for controlling lighting. And then the one that I use to control my lighting and video for Spiral Cell is called the MVP by a company called Forecast. It's a standalone device that will receive MIDI messages and output lighting as well as video. I have videos on both of those. You can check out either of those videos by clicking the links on your screen now. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on my social media pages at Scott Yule Music. Leave a comment if you have any other cool gear you want me to check out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.